All right, what's up everybody? So I don't really have much of a topic for this video, but what I thought I would do is hop on here and kind of show you guys the ID22 a little bit more. I do get questions from time to time about this audio interface that I use because it has a ton of features and you can catch these things going for oftentimes around $300 used, which means that this is a great budget-friendly option if you are in the market for a new audio interface. And I really do truly believe this thing is packed with a ton of features, a lot of professional features that I think all of us can utilize. Anyways, with that being said, I'm going to dive a little bit more in depth into this interface and talk a little bit about the features that I think are worth noting. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump straight into the video. So the first thing I want to talk about, and this is something that's important for me anytime I'm looking at getting a new audio interface, and that's the amount of gain that interface has and then the EIN that it is rated at. Now, I've talked about on the channel several times what EIN is, but essentially to break it down into layman's terms and really all that you need to know when it comes to EIN is the lower the number, the better results, the better outcome that you're going to have in your recordings. So for example, I'm using the SM7B. This is a very gain hungry microphone. Everybody knows that this microphone requires a ton of gain, and that's why oftentimes people pair it with something like the Cloudlifter CL1. Because it's such a gain hungry microphone, it requires you to use a preamp that one has enough gain to supply to this microphone so that you can get a healthy enough signal going into your DAW, and two, you need to be using a preamp or interface that has a low enough EIN so that whatever you end up recording into your DAW isn't going to be filled with a bunch of static and hiss in the background. A prime example that I can give you is when you record on something like a Scarlett Solo, especially the first generation ones where they only supplied up to 50 decibels of gain. That is not enough to power this microphone. If I was to record on that one, my vocals would be much closer to the noise floor on that than if I was to record on the ID22. And the crazy part is that the EIN on the Scarlett Solo is a little bit better than the ID22. So you would think that it would be better to record on the Scarlett Solo, but no, in fact, it would be better to record on the ID22 because the ID22 provides 10 decibels more of gain. You're going to record much further away from the noise floor on the ID22 than you would on the Scarlett Solo. With that being said, it would make more sense to record on the ID22 because this provides way more gain than the Scarlett Solo. Again, this would provide up to 10 decibels more of gain, which is significant. So it would make a lot more sense to record on the ID22 than the Scarlett Solo. So in my opinion, if you are looking at a dynamic microphone and trying to find a preamp or interface to pair with it, you definitely want to make sure that it has enough gain. I would say that's the most important aspect because, to be honest, most of these interfaces made nowadays have very low EINs already out the box. So you really don't need to worry about there being a bunch of noise and static recorded into it. That is not going to be the case more often or not, but it is worth mentioning that the EIN on the ID22 is pretty good. At -125, there is literally no way that you're going to hear anything in your recordings. There should be not a chance that you're going to record any static or hiss in your recordings if you're relying on just the preamps of the ID22. Again, it supplies up to 60 decibels of gain, which is more than enough to power the SM7B. Another thing that I want to mention with the ID22, and this is the reason why I ended up buying this interface in the first place, is it has the ability to bypass the preamps on this interface. So if you wanted to use an external preamp, you absolutely could. On here, you can just route the external preamp of your choice that you're using. Me, for example, I'm using the Art Pro MPA2, so I can route the audio out from the MPA2 and into the ID22 and completely bypass the preamps on the ID22. Most budget interfaces don't give you the option to bypass the preamps, so having that in something that is sub $1,000 is pretty amazing. More often or not, I actually end up using my external preamp and processors before I go into the ID22. I like to record with compression and different effects prior to going into my DAW. I find that it helps with my workflow and kind of speeds up the process, and I just enjoy the sound of physical analog equipment at the end of the day. So having that ability, if I wanted to go directly into the interface, don't have to mess around with the preamps on the Audient, and I wanted to do it all with my external external hardware, I have that option. It's there for me if I want to use it. However, for this video, I wanted to demonstrate the preamps on the ID22. So this entire time you have been listening to the SM7B going directly into the ID22. Like I had said at the beginning of the video, this thing can supply up to 60 decibels of gain, which is more than enough for the SM7B. Right now I'm recording close to around minus 23, minus 22 LUFS short term. That's where I record all the time, even when I'm using my external preamps, and this thing is having no issue with that. And as you can tell, just listening to the audio, sounds very clean, very professional. I don't think anybody would complain with the way that this sounds, and no hiss, no hum. Everything is dead silent. You're just hearing my vocals, of course. So very, very impressed with the preamps on this unit. You absolutely could just run your microphones into this interface and you're gonna get great results. One thing I wanna mention before I forget is the amount of outputs on this interface. One thing that I like to do is record into the DAW and then route that audio back out and into my different processors that I have, and then in real time fine tune it and then record it back into the DAW. It's pretty awesome. So what ends up happening is it's no different than messing around with a plugin. So if you're listening to whatever song it is you're working on and you're playing around with a plugin in the DAW, I'm doing that in real time with physical analog equipment and I'm recording it back into the DAW. It makes using something like the KT2A so much more fun and enjoyable to use. I can sit here and in real time fine tune it until I get the amount of compression that I want on that piece in the song, and then I can record it back into the DAW and it's there in the song, laid out perfectly with the compression, all done in real time. So again, it's not much different than using a plugin inside the DAW and you're just sitting there adjusting it while listening to the music. I'm doing that, but except with actual physical hardware. So pretty awesome. And that's something that can be done because of the amount of outputs that are on the back of this thing. It has a crazy amount of different configuration that you can put it through in order to get what it is you want done in your DAW. So again, pretty awesome. That's one of the biggest things that I love about the ID22. And then when it comes to monitoring, this thing is absolutely amazing. I use a pair of HD 600s on here and it has no trouble powering them and providing a loud enough sound for when I'm listening back to my audio. Sounds very clean, very transparent. I love it. Even when I'm just sitting here and watching YouTube videos on my computer, listening to music or whatever, sounds great. So no complaints on that. Really the biggest thing for me is the amount of gain that it has, the low EIN, and the amount of outputs, being able to bypass the preamps. I mean, this thing is really, really amazing. And again, for sub $1,000, I personally don't think that you can't, there's nothing else on the market in my opinion that can beat this thing. Maybe I'm wrong, and if so, correct me, but I think that the ID22 is definitely a very solid choice. You can find these things going for 500 brand new, or oftentimes 300, or sometimes even less. I remember I bought one used in the past for, I believe, about 250 to 300, somewhere around that range, and I see them going for that all the time. So you just kind of have to keep your eye out and eventually you'll find one. But yeah, love it. So if you're looking for something to upgrade your studio setup, you want to start investing in actual physical analog gear, I think that this is something you definitely want to look into because it's going to help with that whole workflow and you will not be disappointed. Anyways, guys, how does it sound to you? What do you think of this setup? Right now I have the SM7B going into the ID22 and I'm just using the preamps on the interface. Very solid sounding in my opinion. Sounds clean, transparent, very professional sounding. I don't think anybody out there would complain with the way that this sounds. And I'm not using any external processing with it. This is all done in the box. Anyways, guys, I think that's gonna wrap it up. If you haven't already yet, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon beside it so that you can stay notified for whenever I drop any of my upcoming videos. With that being said, I will see you all in my next one. Take care, everybody. Peace out.